Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now in this video I'm excited to be releasing my Honey course onto YouTube. Now there's a couple of things I want to mention before we jump straight into developing it, and the main one is just that this was originally recorded in 2020, so there's a few things that have changed since then, mostly Firebase version 9 and Chrome extension manifest version 3. But throughout the videos I've edited in a couple of new parts where I'll just jump in the corner and highlight certain things and give some tips around the things that have changed and what to do differently. One more thing to mention is that part of the reason why I've launched this is because it is out of date now, but it will still be useful to go through and see the process of creating an extension from start to finish. Another thing I just want to mention as well is I'm launching a new course soon, and it's not just building one extension like this. It's more focused on just broader extension development. So that's like Chrome extensions, Firefox, the new iOS Safari extensions, and we'll be building a number of projects like this in that course, but it's just a lot more detail really. And you can find links to all of that in the description. Also, if you'll be interested in knowing how to develop this Honey extension for Manifest version 3, leave a comment on this video or send me a message on Twitter and let me know, and I can see if there's enough interest for that. I can launch a separate video migrating this extension that we actually create by the end of this video as well. And also, if you have any questions throughout this, leave a comment or send me a DM on Twitter and I'll be happy to take a look. Anyway, let's get started. So we're going to be creating our app in Firebase, which we're going to be using as the database, so where all the coupon codes for each domain will be stored. Then we're going to create a folder with the necessary files we need for the Chrome extension, such as the manifest JSON file and the JavaScript and background HTML files that the extension will be made up of. Then we will add this folder to Chrome. The way we add this first is as an unpacked extension, and then at the end of the development we can pack it, and then that's what you would then submit to the Chrome extension store. And then we'll start to connect Firebase to our extension, so we can have communication back and forth from our extension to the Firebase database, so we can start to actually put it all together. And then step 5 is we'll just refresh the extension, so we can start to see how the development will move forward as we make changes to the code. So we don't have to submit it to Chrome each time. We can press the refresh button, so that makes it a lot faster. So we'll start by creating a new app in Firebase. So you can do that by just going to the Firebase console like this and then clicking on Add Project. So it's very easy, you just have to enter a name for the project. So we'll call this Coupon Finder. You can call it anything you want though. So you just click Continue. It will ask you if you want to add analytics to your project. You can if you want, but I'm just going to say no for now, just to make it more lean. And then Create Project. This may take a couple of moments just to fetch everything and set it up. Okay, so as soon as the project is ready, you can click Continue. Then what we want to do is click on the web icon just here and then register a name for your app. So again, we'll call it Coupon Finder. We don't want to set up Firebase hosting, and then you just click Register App. And now we'll be provided with this script here. Hello from the future. Okay, so this part has changed quite a bit since the course was originally recorded. So what you'll find is that the version in here will be different, and these options won't be the same at all. The main thing you want to look for is your config settings here, so your API keys. So make sure you copy that. But in terms of the URL you get at the top here, you don't want to be using that. So I'm going to put a link in the description of this video to a file that you can use, which is basically going to be based on this change here. So this is all came about because of the change of Firebase version 9. But what this change will also do is put you in a really good position when it comes to migrating this completed extension to Manifest version 3, which I'll cover in a separate video. But essentially we want to make sure that we're using a specific version of Firebase to do this. So I've put a link in the description to the changes we'll need for this, which will be covered in a separate video. But for now, just bear that in mind as you follow along with the next steps in the course. So all you need to do now is just copy this to one side and then we're going to start to create a folder and the files that we need. So first, within Atom, I'm going to add a project folder. So this is my new folder I've created just here. So I'm going to add a folder inside this, and we're going to call it Coupon Finder. So just keep the same namings along the way here, just keeps it easier. And then we're going to add a file inside of this folder. What I'm going to do to make it easy to follow along is just drag this window up, so there's space along the bottom here for you to follow along. Okay, so you can now add your code editor underneath just here. Inside of our Coupon Finder folder, we're going to create the files that we need to run our extension. So we just create a new file here. So the first one will be the manifest.json. Then we will need app.js. And next we need background.html. And then finally, we need Firebase.js. So these are all the files that we'll be using. And the next thing we need to do is set up our manifest file so that we can actually submit our extension to Chrome. Okay, so inside the manifest. Hello again. Okay, so in this part of the video here, if I just move along a little bit, you can see that we're creating this manifest file. Now this was originally created for manifest version 2. So what I'm going to recommend for now, you can continue to actually develop extensions for manifest version 2 so long as you're not submitting these to the web store at the moment. So what I'd recommend is build this locally along with this video, and I'm going to be creating a separate video that actually shows how to migrate this across to manifest version 3. Now that it's not a massive change that's required. So the main thing is actually more changes required to move it to use Firebase version 9 than manifest version 3. So we'll do it all in the same change, but there's a link in the description to show how you can actually use Firebase version 9, and the changes we're doing there are almost everything you'd need for manifest version 3 anyway. But like I say, if you develop along with this, you should be okay, so long as you're not submitting this to the web store, because that's when you'll find issues. It might have a warning when you add it, just to say that the manifest version 2 is going to be sunsetted soon. But don't worry about that for now, because we are going to cover this in the next video. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that quickly in case there was, when you see that it's version 2. But yeah, don't worry about that. File, we need to create a new object here. I'm just going to enter in some attributes that we need to make our extension work with Chrome. So the first one is the name of our extension, so you can put anything you want in here, but again I'm just going to follow the same pattern I already have. So we're going to call this Coupon Finder. We have to have a version number, so this I'll just put 0.1. Then need a description, which I'll put coupons. So for the permissions, we have to enter these as an array. So we do that like this, and then the permissions that we need will be active tab. So this gives us the ability to sort of access the tab that the user is on, and we want to be able to run this on all URLs. And we also want to access other tabs as well. So this helps us to be able to access our background page and the way we're going to make communications back and forth. So after that, we continue adding more options. So next is the background. So this is a file that we run in the background. So again, this will be the page here is our background.html. Just need to put the quotes around here. So again, background.html, and we don't want this to be persistent. So we don't want this to be running all the time, just when we call it. So this just helps for the amount of calls that we're making, so it just keeps it so it performs slightly better. Next, we need to set the type of extension that we're creating. So there's a number of different ways you can have a extension with Chrome. You can have extensions that only appear if you tap the icon in the corner up here on Chrome. You have other extensions that inject content into the page like we're creating here, and you have other extensions that add like a landing page. If you create a new tab, they take over that new tab whilst you're there. But for this one, it's going to be, we're going to inject code into the page. So that is called a content script. And for that, we have to pass in information that we're going to be using. So this is an array again. So this array takes in an object. So the first of these attributes is called matches. Now this is similar to up here. It tells us what URLs we want to inject code into. Now, because we want this script to work on any website, this extension to work on any website, if we have a coupon, we want to be able to show it. So again, we want to put all URLs. Then we have to mention the actual JavaScript files we want to include. So for us, that's app.js. And then we just want to say when should this content be added. So we'll say run at document end. So this should be once all of the content for that page has been added, which is normally enough. Some pages, such as LinkedIn's a good example, they take a while to load the page and there's some extra sort of calls that take place. So when you're making extensions for places like LinkedIn, perhaps Gmail, you need to add your own checks to make sure that the like the divs and the elements of the page you might want to interact with are loaded. But for this example and what we're going to be doing, this is perfect. So we want to add one more, which is the manifest version, which at the moment is version 2. And then we want to add our content security policy. Now this is quite a long string, which has all the information we need to use Firebase, which I'll type in now, but I'll have this so you can copy it in the description of this video. Okay, so that should be all the information we need to enter for the manifest. So you can go ahead now and save this. Okay, so now that we've added that, we want to go into Chrome, go to Settings, then go to Extensions, and we want to click Load Unpacked up here. We'll click Load Unpacked. Then we want to find the folder that we've just created. So for me, this is in it's Coupon Finder. So I'll click Select just here. And then if we search for this new extension, you can see it just here. Now there is an error at the moment. That's because we haven't got any content on our page. Just make sure that you have a dot just here if you're following with me. Otherwise, if you're copying and pasting, don't worry. So if we go back here, clear this all and refresh, you should see it work. So this is the next step I was going to show you in step 5 actually. So once you've added your extension into Chrome, any changes that you make, you have to refresh and then these will be reflected. So for example, if we go to, let's just find a random store here, our extension will be running on this page. So if we add to our app.js, this is the file that will be actually injecting code into the page. So if we look again, we have our background file here, which is background.html, but this won't actually run anything on the page. That's just what we're using to send information back and forth from Firebase. So if we go into here and just say alert hello from extension, then go back to the extensions, refresh, and then reload this page, you can see now we have, well, it says form, but hello from the extension. So that shows that our extension is on this page and it's loaded correctly and our manifest file has worked. Now you can see what your background.html is looking like here, but in the next step we'll start to add Firebase into our extension and start to make the connections to our database. Before we continue, I just want to make a quick spelling fix from the last video. So where we had persistent just here, make sure you switch this A into an E like this. But that's the only change you need to make just there. So for this video, we're going to be adding in our connection to our Firebase script. So if we go back to Firebase or find information just here, we want to take the Firebase config information here. So if we copy, and we're going to paste this into the firebase.js file. So we go to Firebase and we paste this in. So this is all we need to do to the firebase.js file for now, but we will be coming back to this file later on. So just save those changes. And then in background.html, we want to make a request to this Firebase file, and we want to also make sure that we load the Firebase SDK. Okay, so when we get to this part here, I want to make it really clear that you won't be able to use these the new script that was generated. It will probably say something like import rather than the script tag that we see just here, which I'm about to say that's what we need to use. Now, if you look really carefully and use this exact version here, 7.9.3, and get the URL exactly the same, then you will be all right. But what I recommend, if you look at the link in the description, you'll see this instead, which is the changes you'll need to migrate to use Firebase version 9, which is essentially, instead of a background page, using a background script, again, all in Manifest version 2 for now. And the only other real change is that we're importing here, which is probably similar to the instructions you're seeing. And if you're wondering how we actually connect to use Firebase here, that's all set in the package information up here. So if you ever used npm or yarn before, you'll be really familiar with this. We're just importing Firebase here. You can see it's Firebase 9.1.3. It's probably newer since I've put this together as well. And we're also using the rollup Chrome extension plugin, which makes it a lot easier to put an extension together. So that's the main change we'll be looking at. And if you want to take a stab at actually doing this straight away, like I said, there's a link in the description. And when it comes to using Manifest version 3, you can actually do that really easily with that plugin as well. But yeah, I just want to quickly mention that before we start using the links to Firebase here. So just to summarize, you can follow these changes here and make sure that you're doing it this way, or when you are grabbing the link here, make sure it is exactly the same as this one where it's 7.9.3. But I'd say it's much better if you're going to be doing this to use the method with via importing and updating and using Firebase version 9 that way. But either way works for the purposes of this video. So the way things work in Chrome extensions is a little bit different to what you might have seen just in normal websites and apps and things like this. You can't call in other external JS directly from your extension. So what we have to essentially do is use this background.html as a bridge between our extension, where we inject the script onto the page, onto the website that we're on, and the background.html file, which will have the connection to Firebase. So that's why we have to make this extra step. But I'll show you what this means. It isn't too complicated. It just helps to make this all perform nicely with Chrome. So what we want to do is in the background.html, if we go back to Chrome just here, we want to take this script and paste this in. And then if we just copy this same script and paste it, we want to make one change here to database, and then just change the version number to 7.9.2. So this should be the most up to date as of March 2020. And then we want to add again our local Firebase. So that we'll call in this file just here. So if we save this and then go back to Chrome and refresh, we'll now have Firebase connected. So if we go back to extensions, refresh this, if we now click on the inspect views, you can see that we have the scripts that we want just here. So if we actually go back to our firebase.js and do a console log of Firebase, refresh this, open up background.html, you can see now that we are connected to Firebase. So this is what we need to start to make connections to and from the database. Now we are going to make changes to our app.js file so we can start to grab the domain name from the page that we're on and then send this through to our background.html page, which we can then check with Firebase if we have any coupons for this page. So let's start by removing this alert script we have here and add a few sections that we want to start to code out. So the first one will be get the current domain. So we'll set this as a variable of domain, and this will be equal to window location host name, but this may have HTTP or www prefixed at the moment, so we just want to make sure that we strip all of this away. So we can do this with a simple replace. So first we'll check if it just has HTTP and then one for HTTPS. And then finally for www as well, like this. And then we also want to make sure that we are splitting any hash parameters from this as well, which we can do like this. Just got to make sure that we get this expression in correctly, and then we want to pass in only the first part. So that should make sure that the domain name is all that we are getting from this, and then we're ready to actually send this through to the background.html. So the way we do this is it uses the Chrome extension object, and then we want to use runtime, and this allows us to send a message through to our background.html. So when we finish writing this, we'll be able to add a piece of code into our background.html, which we actually call the Firebase file, and then to add a listener event for any messages that are sent. But first we'll create the message here. So we want to set a number of parameters for this. So we'll send an object through that has a command. And the reason we want to set a command here is because we want to be able to send different types of requests through to this file. So the two requests that we want to be able to create is first is a request when we load the page to check if we have any coupons for this domain. Just notice that's spelled wrong. If we have any requests. So we will pass this, we'll call this one fetch. And the second type of command we want to make is if we want to submit a coupon to the database. So these are the two different types we're going to be creating, but right now we're going to focus on this one type. So we're going to pass in some data as well, which will be an object, and it will be called domain, and we're just going to pass in this variable just here. So that is the only parameters we want just here, and then we obviously want to listen for a response, and that will call, and that will be sent in just here. So this is where we'll get our response from the database, which is background.html, which actually then makes a call to firebase.js. This just helps us remind ourselves where these calls will be made. So we'll save that for now. And then we want to go into, so there we have background.html and then Firebase. So in here, we need to create a listener for any messages that are being sent through to the background.html page. So the way we do this is very similar to the Chrome runtime send message. So instead, we put Chrome runtime on message, and then want to add listener. And then this will be looking for these same parameters. The first one will be the message, which will be all of the parameters that are sent just here. So this will be called message. And then we have two extra options here, which are sender and then the response. This is where we want to send the response back through to this function just here, so we can access the information inside this. So we'll open this up into a function of our own. And then inside here, because like we mentioned, we're going to have the two different types of commands. So there'll be the fetch to grab the coupons, and then there'll be a post to push new coupons into the database. We want to just make sure which type of command has been sent to us. So we say message.command, and if this is equal to fetch, then we can start to run some code in here. So what we'll do just now, just to test this, is add a console log of the domain. So let's just set domain is equal to message.data.domain. Just fix that again. And then we'll console log the domain just here. So if we save that and make sure that we have this all correct just here, we'll then go back into Chrome and go to the extensions, refresh the extension, and then go to a page, and then we'll check if the background.html page is logging the domain into the console. So again, we press refresh just here. We'll load up our shop again. So if we go on just a couple of websites just here and then check on the background page, you can see that we are now getting the results log just here in the console. So if we load up another page and then check the log, you can see that these results are updating as and when we go on these pages. So that means that we have a connection from our app through to our background.html, which we can then receive these requests and then send a result back. Well, at the moment we are just logging this to the page. So next we need to send this result back to app.js so that we can see a response. Okay, so in this next video we're going to make a request to our Firebase database and send the domain name encoded in base64. The reason we're going to encode the domain name is because within Firebase, inside our database over here, you can't use dashes or dots as the key. So we need to make sure that this is encoded correctly before we get to this stage. So we're going to be using the real-time database over here, and we're going to start it in test mode. So just let that create over there. And we're making our request to /domain. So then inside here will be the encoded domain name, and then we will have an array of coupon codes that you can have inside here. So they'll be shown. So this is how the structure will look as an example. So we'll have the encoded domain name just here, and there'll be an array of coupon codes, and then for each coupon code we'll have the code like this, and then a quick description of each coupon. So for example, how much money off you get for this coupon. So now we're going to create a script that will make searches, make requests to our database at each of these. So it'd be domain / and then whatever the encoded domain name is, and then fetch all of the results. So we can then render these onto our extension. So if we jump back to Atom now, or your code editor, we're going to go into our fetch command just here to make sure that it's not the post command, and we need to encode our domain name. So we're going to just create a new variable here where we encode the domain, and this will be using the JavaScript base64 encode function, which is BTOA, and then we just pass in domain just here. So we get rid of this console log. This is what we want to be actually making a check with. And then now we just connect to Firebase and see if we have any coupons. We've already set up our connection to Firebase, so we can call our database right away. So you just call database, and then we need the reference or path of the call that we want to make. So like we said, this will be domain, and then / encoded domain. Now, because Firebase lets you get results real time, we have to make sure that we explicitly say once just here. So this will fetch it, get the latest information each time we make a call, and then we need to listen for the response. So in here we will get our results. So we will say response. This will send it back to app.js. So we'll get the result in here, so we can start to use this to render it onto the screen. So we'll say we want to set a number of different parameters here so we can actually debug and find out what sort of information we're getting back from the database. So we'll set a type of result. We want a status as well. So if it's got to this stage, it's been a success. And then of course we want to pass the data in as well. So this will be snapshot. This is the variable we've assigned to this here. And then we want to pass in all of the value that we've fetched from Firebase. And then we just want to say what the initial request was, which will help if we're debugging. So again, we want to set this whole message just here. So this should now send this result. So if we set a console log here for the response, we can now see how this looks without having to go to the background.html each time. So if we go to Chrome, refresh our extension, and then go onto a web page, let's see what response we get from Firebase. Bearing in mind, we only have this one test example here at the moment. So we want to refresh. And now let's go to a web page, inspect, check the console. You can see here response from Firebase undefined. So this just here is showing that we don't have any record for anything in the database at the moment for this path. But if we now go to encode this, we can actually make sure that we have a response here. So if we want to encode this by hand, you can go to this handy site here, base64encode.org, paste in the string that you want to encode, then we'll copy this, go back to our database, create a new entry just here. So this is our domain name. Then we want to make sure that we set a code. So this will be coupon name, set our description. So if we add this into the database and then go back over here, we can see that the error is still happening. But if we go back into our code editor just here, and then underneath where we make this check for the command, we need to add in return true, and this will keep the message port open for us while we make the request to the Firebase database. So if we go back now and update our extension and try this again, you can see now we do have our response from Firebase, and this should show our example coupon just here. But if we go to a different domain name, use this site again as an example, you will see that the response is null because we don't have any coupons for this domain. So we have this one here now that's linked up to google.com. So in the next video, we'll start to make sure that we take these coupon codes that have been sent back from the database, and we will loop through these and actually display them on the screen so we don't have to keep looking into the console log and debugging it each time. So we'll start to work our way into making actual displays for this data. Next up, we need to start to display the coupons that we have fetched from the database. So in the last video, we looked at getting the responses from Firebase so we could send it back to the message response that we wanted over here. So we now have the coupons, if there are any, in this variable just here. So in this video, we're going to loop through this array, if there's any coupons that is, and start rendering these onto the screen. So we're going to start by creating a new function down here. And we'll call this pass coupons, like this. And then over here, we'll just call this function and then put in response.data. So that way we're making sure that this send message to our firebase.js file will make a call, we'll get the response, and then we'll send the response through to this function over here. Now to begin with, we just want to loop through our coupons array and then add them to a list, and then we'll use this later on. So we'll put all of this inside a try block in case there's no coupons, so this will be null. So we don't want to be looping something that is null because that will cause an error. So if we just put this inside a try block, that will catch the error and we won't have any issues. So we'll call this coupon HTML, and this will be empty to begin with, and then we'll just say coupons for each. And we'll just set this as coupon and index. Just fix that there. So this will loop through our array and then set each item as coupon, and we've got the index there if we need it. But all we're going to do is call coupon HTML. We'll add to it each time, and we'll just say inside this list here, the code, and this will be the coupon.code. So again, from the database we set up in the last video, we saw that we have two parameters for the coupon. There's the code and there's the description. So after this, we'll set the description. So just put this in italics. So that'll be coupon.description, and then make sure to close off that tag just there. So this will mean we have a this variable here will have all of our codes, our coupon codes, in a nice list for us. So we can use this to actually render onto the page. So the next thing we need to do is create some elements that we can use to display this. But first, we just need to add a check in case that this response was null, so that we don't have an error. So we'll just say catch, then set a variable for this error just here. And to begin with, we'll just log this to the screen and just say no coupons found for this domain. And then we'll just put the error message there as well, just so we can debug that. So we'll save this for now, but before that, we just want to render this list onto the page. So to do that, we will create a new element just here. I was jumping ahead of myself there. So we'll call this coupon display, and this will be a new div element like this. Just make sure to capitalize that. And then we'll say coupon display in HTML equals, just fix these quotes, and then inside here we'll put the coupon HTML. And then it's just a matter of adding this to the body. Like this. So what we have now is we have our send message from earlier. We then now have this new pass coupons function, which will take in the list of coupons just here, so the response data. We'll then loop over all of the coupons that have been found and add them to this list. And then we create a new div element just here and then set this as the inner HTML, and then we append it to the page. So let's go and refresh the extension and see how this appears. So we've refreshed our extension now. If we go to Google, which is where we had this in the first place, you can see our coupon is appearing up here without any styling at the moment, but that's good. That's the coupon we had there. And if we change anything about this, let's say we put a couple of exclamation marks after this and then refresh, you can see it says it's updating each time from the database, which is why we're using Firebase, because it helps us have a really quick, easy to access database, and they can deal with all the security and authentication for us. So it keeps everything nice and quick. Okay, so in this video, we're going to take the display we have so far and contain this within a clickable element that when they click on it, it will open up and show the list of coupons inside, rather than this random sort of display on the corner of the screen here. So let's jump back into our code editor and start to make this happen. Okay, so here's the code we have currently, where we have our coupon display div element, and this has been added to the screen, which is a great start, but we want to change this around so that we have a part of the screen that you can click on, which will then show this. So let's start by actually hiding this element to begin with. And we want to set a class name to this so that we can access it later on. So you can do that just by saying class name. And we'll call this coupon list, just with a couple of underscores, so one at the start and then two in between. And we want to add a little bit more HTML here just to make it clear what is being shown. So we'll just set a heading here and say coupons, and then we'll just set another sort of subheading that just says list of coupons. And we could even pass through the domain name here like this. So we could say list of coupons for, and then add the domain. So if we have a look now, well, actually we won't look just yet because this is hidden, but what we want to do next is add a little circle in the top of the screen here that if you click, it will open this display. So let's move slightly further down here and create another element called coupon button. So again, with document create element, and this will be a div. And then we've got our coupon button here. We'll give this a class name of coupon button, and then we want to add some styling to this, so we'll just add this as CSS. So we'll add a list of things here. So first we want to do is make sure that we have a height of, let's say, around 30 pixels, a width of 30 pixels. We want it to be rounded as well, so just add a border radius of 100%. Let's go into a new line here, so just like this, we can carry on. Set a border of 1 pixels, and add a background color, and set a text color of blue, just so we can see this. It'll probably look horrible to begin with, but we'll style it later on in the course so we can make it look much more appealing for the user. But to begin with, we're just going to make sure that we've got something that we can interact with. So let's just add another new line just here. Make sure we have the quotes here on each line. So it needs to start with one, have one closing, and then for after this, we want to have the plus icon so we can add to this string. We want to make it clickable, and then we want to set the position. So the position will be fixed, so as we scroll down the page it will stay there. We want it to be 5 pixels from the top of the screen and 5 pixels from the right hand side of the screen, so again around here. And this should be everything we need. We just have to set some content. So we'll text align to the center, close off the string just there, and then we want to set the inner HTML to, let's just say, coupon. That might not fit though, so let's just check this here. And lastly, we want to add this to the page like this. So if we now refresh our extension and see what we get. Okay, we can see that our circle is appearing over here, but it's not the easiest to see. So let's just make sure that we index this correctly. So if we go back over here and just say Z index some 9s there just to adjust the hierarchy. Refresh the extension again. Okay, it's now over the top. So now what we want to do is add a click event. So when this is clicked, it will open and display the list of coupons that we had before. But we want to style that as well so it appears over here. And let's just fix up this coupon text so it's centered nicely. So we'll do this by just saying display flex, justify content, center, and align items center. Just fix this here. And then we want to add some styling over here as well. So we're going to, if we'll just copy all of this, and we want to add a height of about 300, width of about 300. You don't need a border radius here, maybe 3 pixels, something just to round the edges a little bit. And the rest of this, I want to move this slightly further down the page so it's not overlapping other elements. So we'll say a top of 100, or maybe slightly less than that, 90. We don't want the text align to be center or this either. But if we just look over this, just add an overflow hidden because we have a list item here, otherwise that will push it across to the side. So we should have everything here. So if we just change this to a emoji, maybe this one. So let's save this, refresh our extension. Okay, we have a slight issue there. Let's just check what we have. Oh, of course, we're saying coupon button, not coupon display. That's why it hasn't been defined yet. So if we refresh this, we should see our updated display here. And then we just need to add a click event to make this display. So we need to remove the display type of flex because it's making these items appear in a column. So this will then be hidden, and then when we click this, it should display it. So we just add code for these now. So remove this display flex. And then let's create a new function down here. So we call this create events. So then down here we'll say create events is a new function. And then we want to say document query selector. And then we want to get the class name of this button. So if we just copy this, paste it here, add event listener on click, and then we want this to run a function down here. So then when this is clicked, we want to display this element up here. So we want to take the other class name, paste that in here, and then style display block. So this should create this event down here which adds an event listener to the button, which is our element just here. So when this is clicked, we update the style of this element up here to display. So we'll just go back now, refresh this. So as you can see, our coupons are still currently being shown. That's because this CSS is overwriting, this CSS here is overwriting what we've put up here. So if we put this underneath, and then remove that one, and then refresh. Okay, so here we go, the coupons list isn't showing, but if we click up here, it will appear. And then if we go onto a domain that hasn't got any coupons, for example, this Argos site here, we can see that our little icon isn't appearing. So later on in the course, we will make a check to see if there aren't any coupons. We'll still show the icon, but in a slightly different design. so that users can submit their own coupons for that site. But for now, we can see that it's detecting from the database if the coupons exist. If they are, it will show this icon in the corner and the users can click on them and see the list of coupons. So obviously we want to make this look a lot nicer and easier to use. And if there's more coupons, we want to make it so they can scroll down and so they can easily copy this coupon code and add it into their basket so they can get the discount. So these are the things we'll be doing later on in the course, but now we've got some basic styling and we're showing the data from our database on Firebase, and then that makes a check to see if this encoded domain name is the page we're on, then it will show these coupons for the user to use. Welcome back to this new section. So in this section we're going to change the design of our Chrome extension over here, so we'll be adjusting the little button we have here that opens up the extension, make it so that if you click it again it will close, and start to add some styling to the extension so it doesn't look like this sort of unspaced horrible blue color. But this isn't a design course, but we'll move it along so that it does start to look a lot nicer, and then you can take this further with your own design and changes that you want to make. But what we're going to be doing first is starting to jump back into our code editor and then start to change some of these styles. So let's go back into our code editor now. Okay, so one of the first things we want to do is start moving some of our styling across into its own CSS file so that we're not having to import our styles directly into the page like this. So to do this, we need to go back into our manifest file, and where we have our content scripts, we're going to add an extra entry to this object called CSS, and this will be similar to where we have app.js above just here. This will just be called coupon.css, and make sure to add a comma here so that this object is all in there correctly. And then after that we just need to add a new file called coupon.css. Okay, so we have this file in here now, and this is linked up into our manifest file so that we can access this from our app.js. So we don't have to start using this CSS inside our JavaScript. So we can remove all of these, but we're going to start to move this across into our coupon.css. So what you want to do first is just copy the CSS that we have here, take a note of the class name, so we'll move this across into here, grab the class name, and paste this in, make sure you add a dot in front of it, and then remove all of the quotes and plus signs that we had from using before. Then we just want to adjust and indent this correctly so that it's easier for us to read and make changes. So we'll just save that. Then we want to do this again for the other elements we have. So we're just going to remove this part of the code now. And then further down here where we have the button, we'll copy all of this code, go back into our CSS file, and do the same process again. Make sure you remove all of the quotes. Okay, so we're going to be making some styling changes as well, but let's just make sure that we have all of this organized and structured nicely inside our CSS file so we don't have to keep going backwards and forwards when we make these changes. And add the dot up here for our class name, and then save, and then again we can remove this line just here. Okay, so save this, and now let's just go back to our extension page, refresh our extension, and see if this is still working with our CSS file rather than having the styles added directly into our JavaScript. Okay, so we can see it's working nicely still here. So now let's start to actually change the styling that we have. So before we change any of the styling, we want to actually make sure that when you click the icon to open up a list of coupons, we want to make sure if they click it again, it will close it, just so that we can free up the space for the user. To do this, we're just going to add in a small check just down here to see if the coupon list is appearing already. So we just do that by saying if the style display type is a block, and then we'll say if it's not, we'll add in this line here. So if it's currently a block, we want to change it to be hidden, and then the opposite of that, if it is a block, If it isn't a block, we want it to be a block. So that would just mean if we go back now, we can click to make it appear, and we click again and it hides. So next, we want to make a couple other changes like this. So up here, we want to change this from being the cash emoji just to C for coupons, like so. So we can start to change the design. So we can change the content that's displayed just so that when we add these new design changes, it starts to look a bit nicer. So again, we're going to change the wording up here as well. So we'll just change this to say, instead of list of coupons for, we'll just say something, browse coupons below that have been used for, and then we'll just put the domain name there, but just bold. Just bold the domain, like so. And then what we should probably do as well is just move this onto a new line. Again, just to keep things much easier to read. And then in here, we'll add another paragraph that will just say click any coupon to copy and use. So this line just here is let us use the and symbol, and then we want to close off that paragraph. And I think we should make this italic as well. We'll put this in line just for now. So again, we'll save this. We can see we have our change up here, and then we have a little bit more information now. Okay, so we're almost ready to start adding the CSS changes that we want for our coupon list here and the coupon button. But first, we just need to change the way that we display the coupons so that it makes it look a little bit more clickable, and to make it so that when we do start to add the styling, we can select these elements much easier so we can add the styling that we want. So let's just go back to our code editor and just make a few changes just here. So to do this, we're going to scroll up here to where we're entering the code for our coupon. And we're just going to remove this part here that's saying code. And we're going to put a span element here with a class of code, and then close that off like this. And then we're going to move this next element here onto a new line. And instead of putting this inside the EM tags for italic, we're going to put it into its own paragraph. And then one thing we should probably do as well is add some sort of emoji arrow, like this one, just so that it adds a little bit of extra flow to the way that we're displaying this. But again, if you want to change this slightly, you can have your own display. I recommend you just to add your own sort of flavor to it just here. But you can copy the CSS that I'm adding. I'll share a link to this after the video, so you can use the same CSS if you want, and then from there, adjust things, make it your own, add a logo if you want, and things like this. So let's just save that now, just to see what this display looks like. So we go back to our extensions, reload, refresh. Okay, so we can see this is spaced out just a little bit more. So now let's jump into the CSS file and start to add some more styles. Okay, so we'll start up here with the coupon list, and let's add some styling first for the header of our coupons. So we'll pick just a simple font family of serif. We'll set a new font size of 26 to make it stand out a little bit more. Then we want to add a margin to the bottom of around 20 pixels. We'll set a border bottom as well of 1 pixel, just a sort of a light grey color. We'll add padding to the bottom just to space out this border. And then we'll set a line height as well, so that our margins just are a little bit more consistent. And this will be 26 pixels, so the same size as our font size. Then we'll add some styling for our paragraph tag inside the coupon list. So we'll change this slightly, the font family here to be sans serif. We'll have a line height of 20 pixels, a font size of 16, just to add a bit of contrast against the header. We'll center it and then add a font weight of 500 and set a color in here as well, a light gray. And then we'll remove the margin top. Okay, so next we want to add some stylings to the actual list of our coupon codes. So again, this will be in coupon list. We want to get the list element. We'll change the list style type to none, and then just remove any margin or padding from the list. And then we'll style the actual list items. So we want to contain these in their own sort of little elements. So we'll add a border radius here of 3 pixels, and then put a border around that. Like this, put a bit of padding of 15 pixels, and then we'll add a shadow around this as well. And we want this to be uppercase. Then we'll just put in a margin bottom of 20 pixels just to space it out if we have more than one code, more than one coupon code available. So we'll save this so far and just see what we have. Bearing in mind we have a few more styles to add here, but we should start to see this take place. Okay, so it's starting to take shape now, but obviously we have a few more issues here, like this, and the padding around the overall element isn't too nice, and obviously this horrible blue color. So we're going to start to make changes to those items now, but you can see this area here is starting to take a little bit more shape. So next we'll apply some styling to the code item. So this is the actual coupon code holder itself. Let's just scroll up. So we'll add a background color of a light orange, a little bit similar to the one used on Honey, but not exactly the same. Again, if you want to change these colors, you should. Add padding of 5 pixels. We want to make sure that it's display inline. And again, we're going to add a border radius of 3 pixels. And we'll put a border around this as well. And we want to make sure that if the cursor of the mouse is moved over, that it's set to be pointer. Okay. And then finally, we want to add some styling to the new paragraph tag for our description. So again, that'll be coupon list in the list item and then paragraph. And we'll text align this to the left, set a margin top of 10 pixels, remove the margin bottom, and we want to remove the text transform from here as well, and set a font size of 14 pixels. It's font size, not text size. So let's refresh this. Okay, so it's looking a little bit better now. You can see here why I'm suggesting for you to add your own styling. But again, this is starting to take shape. So now we need to actually work on the overall enclosing element here of the actual parent coupon list div element to remove this blue color. And then we'll actually add some styling to the button up here as well. Okay, so first we're going to change our border radius to 6 pixels. We want to bring the box shadow that we are using up here, just to add a shadow around the outside of the list items. We want to make the border color white. We'll keep the background the same. We will keep these elements the same. We'll add some padding of 15 pixels. We'll remove this blue color just here, as we mentioned, and then we want to allow the user to be able to scroll down the page. So at the moment we have overflow hidden. So this means if we have more than one coupon, and it will get cropped off at the bottom of the div here. So we want to make sure that they can scroll down. So that'll be overflow Y. We'll set that to auto, and then that is everything we need so far. So we'll save that, and then the actual coupon button we need to set as well. So we'll adjust the size here. We'll change the height to 40 pixels, set the width as 50, and then we'll change the border radius just to be 6 pixels. So we've got more of a sort of rectangle than this circle. We'll use our same box shadow again. And again, with the color, we'll remove this and we'll make our border color white. We'll set a font family of serif, and we'll adjust the distance we are from the top and right hand side of the screen just to 15 to give it a little bit more room to breathe. And then we're going to set a font color So let's just save this now and have a look at what we have so far. Okay, so we can see it's not perfect by any means, but it's got a bit more defined sections and a little bit of styling going on here, which is enough for us to move forward with and use for the next part of the course. So next we're going to be allowing users to click a button down here at the bottom of this element so they can submit their own coupons to the database, so you can start to populate this with information. And so this will be the next section of the course. Okay, so in this next video we're going to be updating our extensions so that you can see the coupon overlay like this, whether you have any coupons available for this website or not. So just to give a quick example of this, we already have our example coupon code in here for google.com, but if I go onto BBC weather over here, I don't have any coupons, but I can't actually see the extension up in the corner. So the first changes we're going to make are to make sure that you can actually always see the button to open the coupon overlay here, and then you can submit a coupon. So instead of adding the button to add the coupons down here, we'll probably add it up in this top corner, so even if they scroll down you can still easily click to add a new coupon. But so first we need to actually make a way so we can click to open this overlay from any website. So let's jump back into our code editor and make some changes. Okay, so we're in our code editor now, and the first thing we need to take a look at is this line just here. So right now we are taking the coupons variable just here and looping over it with the for each function just here. Now this is great if you know that you're always going to have content to loop around, but because we know that some of these domains will be empty, we need to change this up a little bit. So we're going to change this instead to say for key in coupons, and this will be our loop just here. So if we comment this part out, and instead of using this coupon variable just here from the for each function, we're going to set it ourselves. So we'll say coupon equals coupons and use key. I'm trying to spell that correctly. So this will loop through each element just here and set this key variable, and that will be the actual key that we want to access in this array. So this will be each individual coupon will have a different key, and so we can access the object the same as we did before, but this will mean that it won't have an error if there aren't any coupons. So just make sure that that isn't there. So we're changing this line into this just here. So after you've made that change, if we save that and refresh and go back to the website again, so refresh and then reload this other domain. Just before we do that, we need to make sure that we take away this closing bracket just here, because the for each function opens an extra bracket just here. So now we only need the one curly bracket just here, or curly braces. So if we go back, refresh and try again, this should fix this problem. Okay, there we go. So we can see our coupon overlay appear now. So in the next video, we'll start to add our styling for the submit button and the overlay that will appear when we click it. And we'll add a little bit of text just down here to say, you can be the first person to add a coupon for this website, just to give them a bit of a call to action to actually create and enter coupons. Now that our coupon overlay is appearing on every website, we need to make sure that we show a separate message if there aren't any coupons for this page. So we're going to add a check in just after we make this loop through the coupons here, and say if coupon HTML is empty, we want to run this piece of code just here. So we'll then just add to the coupon HTML, and we'll say be the first to submit a coupon for this site. Just fix the spelling there. So if we save that and refresh and take a look at our page, just make sure to close off that paragraph tag, we should now see a message in our Chrome extension. So if we go to a site that doesn't have any coupons, just like this, wait for the page to load, open the overlay, and there is our message just there. So you can see that it's now showing on this page. Okay, so now that we have a message that's appearing here if they don't have any coupons, we need to add in a button for people to click onto to submit any coupons they have for that website. So what we're going to do for this is go into the inner HTML area just here, and we'll just add a new div element and then move this onto a new line, and we'll say submit coupon, and we'll add a class name in here to submit button. So that'll be the name of this class. So if we save this and refresh, we'll find a new button. We'll add styling for this at the end of this video. And then we need to add a further element down here to create the actual overlay that will appear when someone clicks this button. So we'll add that just here. So we'll then create a new variable again. We'll call this coupon submit overlay. And this is we'll create a new element, which will be a div. Similar to before, so we'll add a class name. So just copy this line here. Class name is underscore submit overlay. And the same as before, I'll go through adding the CSS, but I'll provide the updated CSS file that we're using at the end. So if you want, you can just copy and paste the CSS or follow along with me. And then we'll set the inner HTML of this element as well. So we will say, we'll put a heading in, so at H3, do you have a coupon for this site? Then close that off. Then on a new line, we will create a number of inputs that they can use. So we need them to pass us the actual code and a description of what this code does. So for example, it's 50% off. And then finally, there'll be a button underneath them to actually submit the coupon. So we'll just add those elements now. So we'll put each of them inside a div. And we need 3 of those for each of those parts. So this first one will be the button, or this last one. And I'll say submit coupon. And then close the button off. Up here, we need a label, which will say code. A label here to say description. And then we need the actual input elements as well. So you do that just the same as you would usually. Input type is text and class is code. Then we'll just copy that and paste that down here and just change the class to description or disk, like this for short. And then we just need to finally add a class name for our submit button, so we can add an event listener when this is clicked. And then almost done, we just need to add one more attribute for this element before we add it onto the page. So make sure you close this off just here. So we want to say coupon submit overlay style display is equal to none, because we don't want this to appear until it actually has been clicked. And then we'll just add this at the bottom of the page. So make sure that's coupon submit overlay. So if we just look over there, we can see that everything is correct, and save. And we'll just refresh this and make sure that there aren't any errors and this is running smoothly. You shouldn't see anything appear. If you inspect element on the page, you'll be able to find this at the bottom of the page, but we don't need to worry about that just yet. Now that we have our submit overlay added to the page, we need to go down and make sure that we create an event to ensure that this appears once the user clicks the submit button up here. So to do this, we need to go down to our create event function down here and add some space at the top. And we're going to copy this line just here because it's going to be an event listener for the click event, just the same as this one here. We just need to make a few changes. So instead of waiting for coupon button, we're going to be listening for coupon list and then submit button. So be sure to close these brackets both up here, and then we're going to be saying document query selector submit overlay style is block. So basically the opposite of what we had up here. And this will then make sure that this element appears. So let's just test this just now. So let's save here, refresh, and reload our page. So we haven't added any styling for these elements just yet, but if we now click submit coupon, we should find somewhere down the page this element appears. Obviously this doesn't have any styling either, but if we refresh and just go back down to the bottom of that page, we can see that this hasn't appeared yet. But if we click the overlay and the submit coupon button, it then appears. So next we need to add styling to actually make sure that firstly this button is styled nicely and that this coupon overlay appears in the middle of the screen just here so that the user can enter their coupon code and the description. And then finally we need a function that once they press submit coupon, that it sends a request to Firebase to add this information into our database. So in the next video we're going to be looking at those two parts. So we'll do the styling and add the connection to Firebase to send this coupon code into our database. Welcome back. So in this next video we're going to first create a function that we can use to send the coupons that the users are submitting through into our database. So to do this we're going to go up to the top here after we have our Chrome runtime send message function, and we're going to create a similar function but for submitting information to Firebase rather than fetching. So we'll start by creating a variable function like this. It will say submit coupon, and again this is a function and it will take in three parameters. There'll be code, description, and domain. So we'll open that up like so. We'll add a console log just to help us debug it if we need to. So we'll say submit coupon, and then we'll just pass through the object that we actually want to send through to Firebase as well. So this will be code, description again, and the domain. So all the information that we're passing in basically, just in an object rather than the plain variables. So that's the logging, so we can see it just there. But next we need to say Chrome runtime send message, so similar to what we're doing up here. And we can actually copy this code here just to save some time. So if we take this just bit here and paste it in, and then we need to change the command from fetch to post. And then in data, we're going to pass in this object just here, like so. And then the response, instead of running the pass coupons function just here, we're going to use a new function we're going to create in a second. So we'll call this one submit coupon callback. And this will take in the response data and the domain again as well. So if we just take this same callback function we just created, this will be a function, and it will take the response and the domain. And then from here, all we want to do is hide the overlay. So that again will be query selector, and so I want to get submit overlay, and then we'll say again the style display is none. And we'll just alert to the screen just for now and say coupon submitted. Just give a little bit of feedback, but I would recommend styling these a little bit nicer if you want to actually use this alert box here, because obviously that isn't the best way to display messages to the user. But for now this is perfect for us to see what we have, and we can actually log this to the console as well, so we can check the actual information we're getting back if you need to debug any of this. So we can check the response just there. So next we need to actually go further down to the page again where we created our event and add an event listener for the submit part of the button that actually will use this new function we've created here. And then we'll go into our Firebase file and add this separate event. So we have the fetch command, we need to add the post command into here as well. Welcome back. So as we mentioned in the last video, we're going to be adding a function down here in the create events function so that we can have a listener for when the user fills in the coupon overlay and submits a coupon. So this will call the function that we created up here, the submit coupon function. So we basically need to make sure that we pass through the code and the description through to this function. So first, as we did before, let's copy the event listener just to save some time and change the input element we're actually listening to. So for this example, it is the submit overlay, and then we want to listen for the submit coupon. So if this element is clicked, we want to run this piece of code. So the first thing we want to do is get the code, so the coupon code. So again, we'll use the query selector, and this will be the submit overlay code we have just here. So it'll be the class of submit overlay, and then we want to access the code input just here. So we use this class name. So that can be accessed just like this. So make sure you have a dot for the class name and then code. And then just add value to make sure that you actually get the input value from this input field. And then exactly the same for the description, like this. And then all we have to do is just pass this through to the submit coupon function. Like this. So this is all we need to do inside our app.js. So we can save this now. And then this is all linked up. So the next thing we'll need to do is update our Firebase file and then finally add our styling for the actual overlay. Okay, now in our firebase.js file, we need to make sure that we add another check in here for the actual push event. So in our case, it's a post command here. So up here we say fetch, and then down here we say post. So we'll add another if statement underneath this one, listening for the post. So we now know that this is where we'll have the submit coupon data coming through here. So we first need to set some variables just like we did up the top here. So we can copy the domain example because we'll need that again. And then we need to get the code. So this will be message data code, and then the same for the description. This will be message data description. So that's quite straightforward. But now we need to make sure that we actually do pass this into the database. So we'll add this inside a try block, just so if there's any errors from Firebase that we can't predict, that they won't just break silently. So we need to capture these errors. So we can do that like this, if I spell that right. And then we can log the error like this. But otherwise, we're okay inside this block just here to run the code that we need to run. So we'll start by saying new post Firebase database, so accessing the database itself. Then we need to set a reference, so it'll be in the domain. And then we want to use this encoded domain up here, so very similar to what we're doing at the top here. And we're going to say push and set code as code and description as description. So that is everything we need to do down here. And then for us to send the response back to the user, we want to say the new ID, like the new ID that's been added into the database. So to do this, we just say post ID equals new post key. So it uses this reference up here. And then there's a Firebase function that can be generated so we can get the unique key of this new coupon code. And then we just pass the response back. So again, because we've set everything up here, we can just pass the response back similar to what we did just here, but instead of it being for the fetch command, it's for the post command. So we would just say response type result, set the status again as a success, and then just pass the data back as the new post ID, and the request is the message. So that is all we need to do to make sure that we pass this into the database. But it's probably best, instead of just logging this to the console, that we do set a separate response so that we actually pass this back to app.js rather than just having the error in this page. So we just set the status here as error and change the data. Just make sure to change this comma and then save, and be sure to do that down here as well. Otherwise you will encounter errors because it's not a correct object. But now just make sure to save, and we'll run the Chrome extension again. You'll find when you run that it doesn't quite load the overlay when you click the extension in the top right hand corner. But to fix that, we just need to make sure that we adjust this class name just here, because I missed out the underscore. But if we update this, save it and run it again, we can start to see our extension appear. So we now need to add some styling, but let's just first check the extension. So we'll go to our coupon finder and refresh. We'll go to a domain, open it up, and we can see that on here we have our coupon, we have our submit button, which we need to add some styling for, and then our overlay that appears as well. So in the next video, we'll add some basic styling for our overlay and our submit button. Next, we need to add some styling to our overlay and our submit button. So we're going to go into our coupon.css file up here and scroll up to the top. And so we're going to start by adding some styling to our overlay. So we'll call this coupon list div. Not the overlay, sorry, our button. So first we want to make sure that we have some padding. So 5 pixels and 10 pixels for the height, for the top and the bottom and the left and the right. We'll set a font size of 10 pixels, a black background. If you want to change any of these colors along the way, feel free. This is just to make it stand out and for us to be able to use it in this in the example. Set some font color as well, font family, and as I mentioned before, you can copy the CSS. I'll add it after this video so you can grab the CSS there. So I'll just go through and add the rest of these. Okay, so this is all the styling we need for our button. So if we save, refresh and check it out, we just need to make sure to add an underscore again at the start here. Keep missing these off. So if we refresh again now, open our extension, and there you can see we have our button styled. So now we need to add some styling for our overlay to make it appear in the middle of the page. And I think at the moment as well, yeah, this is hidden behind the elements of the page. So underneath where we added the styling for the button, we'll add some styling for our overlay. So again, this is underscore submit overlay. The second one is a hyphen, and this is going to be fixed as a position. We'll set a width of 220 pixels, a height 200 pixels, and we'll position it halfway down from the top of the page and 50% from the left. For the margin left, we're going to be doing minus 110 pixels, which is half of the width, and the same from the top. Set a background color, a border color, a Z index so that it appears on top of every element possible. Because we're working with different websites here, they could have floating elements, so this is just to make sure that the overlay appears on the top of any content. We'll set a padding, and we're going to use this box sizing CSS property here and set this as border box. And then finally we'll just text align as center. So if we save this now and then reload our extension and refresh, so we can open up our extension, we click the submit button, and we now have our overlay appearing on the page. Now it's not the prettiest, but it should be functional. So if we open up our Firebase console and check our database, we're going to add an extension and to make sure that our function we made to post the coupons through to our database is working. Okay, you may have noticed this on your code as well, but I typed this wrong up here. So you see the description line where we have it's supposed to be message. So just need to change this one line here, but you should have this correct on yours. But just in case you were copying exactly what I was writing, just make sure to update this line just here. But otherwise, everything should be pushing through to your database. So I'll just run my example again just to show you. So any errors will appear just here. But if we refresh this reload the page, open our overlay, add our discount code, add our description, and submit. We've got our message saying coupon submitted, and if we now check in our database, you can see that it has appeared down here, and this is the unique post ID that we mentioned before, so that you can use this to actually display different information on the page if you want. So at the moment they don't appear just here yet, but if you refresh this page, because it was for this domain name, and we reload, you can see that it appears just here. So in the next section of the course, we're going to make a few adjustments so that if you click on the discount code just here, it will copy to your clipboard, so you can then just paste it into your cart. And we'll make a final few adjustments to the styling areas like this, and make sure that you can close this overlay, and just more finishing touches. And then we'll look at how you can actually publish your Chrome extension onto the Chrome extension store. To this new section. So as we mentioned before, we're going to carry on where we left off. So we're going to be making it so that when you click on these coupon codes just here, they'll get copied to your clipboard. And we're also going to add a event so that we can close this overlay when we click. So we'll add a button up here so you can just click and close the overlay. But first we're going to work on this area over here, so we can start to copy to clipboard whenever you click on any of these codes. So let's jump back into our code editor and start to add these functions. Okay, so here we are back in our code editor, and we're going to scroll down to where we have our event functions down here. And we're going to add a new function just above this that will actually be the copy to clipboard function. So it'll be a new function here, so copy to clipboard, and this will take in a string that we want to copy. And so in here, what we basically want to do is create a text area temporarily, and we'll input a string as the value of this text area, select it, copy it, and then remove the text area. So we'll start just by creating the input, and this will be, as we mentioned, a new element of text area. And then we'll set the inner HTML to be our string, like this. And then we just need to add it onto the page. So you use append child again to add the input event or input element, and then we just select it. So this will select all of the contents of the text area, essentially sort of doing this. So it's just going to select it, and then we want to copy it to clipboard. There's a number of different ways to do this, but the best way on Chrome, which is where the extension will be and that supports the most browsers, is to use this exec command function like this, and then pass through copy. So that is exec command copy. And then all we have to do is then remove the element that we just created like this. So make sure you spell remove correctly. So there we go. So we're creating the element, setting the inner HTML as our string, adding it to the page, selecting it, copying it, and then removing it from the page. And then we'll just return this function. So that is our copy to clipboard function. Now we need to actually use it. So down here, we're going to create a new event, and this event will be similar to what we have done before. So be document query selector. But this time we want to say query selector all. So we're selecting all of the elements on the page that will have this matching class. And we're going to be looking for coupon list. Make sure you have underscore coupon list. And then we're looking for the code class in here as well, which corresponds to our class up here. So span class is code. So we'll loop through all of those elements, and then we'll make a check down here. So we're calling them code item, and then we'll just run again. So this is essentially like adding an event listener to each individual item with this class. So we're selecting all of them, looping through, and then we just say code item, add event listener on click, and then this will be
basically the same as where you would do it normally, but inside here we can now run code as if it's on each of these individual elements without having the query selector all. This bit down here makes it be exactly as it would be as we created it down here. So inside here, we just need to say code string is code item inner HTML, and then we just say copy to clipboard code string like this. So this will add an event listener to all of our coupon codes, and when they click on them, it will copy them to clipboard. So we'll save this, and let's go back to our Chrome extension, refresh, and see what we have. So refresh, and go back to our extension. Click on one of our coupons, paste, and we can see that it is pasting and copying the events that we have just here. So that's working correctly. So next, we want to make sure that we can close this overlay. So we're going to add a span element at the top here, and when it's clicked, it will close this overlay. Okay, so first we're going to add a span element. So up here where we have our overlay, we're going to add in a span just here and move this down onto a new line. Just make sure there's a single quote just there and a single quote just there to start off with. And we'll say class is close, and then we'll just put an X in brackets there and say close. So that's all we need for our button, and then we just go back down to our events area, and then we're just going to add another query selector. Actually, we can copy this one here and paste, and instead of running it on here, it will be the submit overlay itself. And then we're looking for the close class. So this will find the submit overlay and then our span that we just created. And instead of making it display as block, it will display as none. So let's save this, go back to our extension, refresh, and rerun. Okay, so when we open our overlay now, we have this close text, and if we click it, it closes the overlay. So there we have it. So we have our extension that can display different coupon codes. You can submit coupon codes, and you can then click to copy any code and use them on your site. In the next video, I'm going to explain how you can submit this function to the Chrome extension store and think about some ways you can improve this extension both in terms of styling and the different use cases and performance you want to get out of it. Welcome back to the final section of this course. Now, so far we've gone through and we've created our extension, we've connected it to our Firebase database, and we've added all the interactions we wanted to and from the database to show our coupons. But let's have a quick think first in the first part of this video about different ways we could improve this extension if we wanted to make it support more users and add more features for them. So let's have a quick look at our extension for here. So here we have it. So this is what we've built. So we have our button up here and it opens this overlay. Now the first thing that stands out to me is that the design of this is very, very basic. So the first thing I would suggest for you to look into, and maybe look at websites like dribble.com where you can find good design inspiration, is different ways you could tweak this starting point to add your own unique flavor to this extension and change the design and the display of this a little bit. Now in terms of features that could work quite nicely, one thing I'd suggest looking into is adding a vote option just here, so you can do like thumbs up or thumbs down to see if this extension, if this coupon code worked for the different users. So then you can quickly see which coupons have been good for people and which ones haven't worked. So that could be a good option to add as well. And now another thing that could be quite useful for your extension is some way you can search. So if you can imagine if you go onto a shop that has lots of different coupon codes, it could be quite overwhelming if they're all just listed here. So it could be useful to add a search box up here. Now I won't show videos just yet on how you can do these, so I'd suggest to try and implement these yourselves, especially starting with changing the design. But if you have any questions on how you would want to go about this, feel free to send me a message or drop it in the questions box. But these are the different ways you could start to really add extra features to the extension and make the design a bit more your own. So in the second part of this video, we're going to look into how you actually publish this to the Chrome extension store. Now there's a full write-up about this from the Chrome extension documentation site. Now this is always going to be up to date. So I'm recording this in May 2020. So by the time you're watching this, it could have changed slightly, but chances are it'll be pretty much the same as this structure.
Okay, here I am in December 2022, and it has changed a lot. So when it comes to all of the steps we're going to be mentioning here, everything is different now. So the main thing you want to make sure, if you try and upload an extension in Manifest version 2, it's not going to work. So first you need to use Manifest version 3, which I'm sure you've heard me say so many times now. And then all of the changes you'll be looking at here are quite different as well. Most of these changes are just visual. So as long as you've got the right Manifest version, you've got a developer account, and everything is in place within your extension. Just to make sure you have the icons, which I'll cover in a minute, and check the fact that your extension has the right quality, so it meets the actual criteria of the store. So if you just copy this word for word and make an exactly extension that's the same as what's already on the web store, that probably will get rejected. So you want to make sure that you have something unique within your extension and you're offering real value to people. But as long as you cover all of these points, you'll be fine. I just wanted to mention that quickly.
So the first thing they mentioned to do is create a zip file, but one thing that can often be forgotten is you need to have an icon. So if we have a look at our extension just here, we can see that in our manifest we just have the name, version, description, permissions, background, content scripts, and so on. But you also need to have a icons option in here. Now this is the images that you need to have to be able to publish your extension. So I'll show you what this looks like in the documentation here. Okay, so every Chrome extension needs to have an icon in the manifest file. Now you need to have an icon that is at least 128 by 128 pixels. For an extension, you also need to have another icon of 48 by 48 pixels, and you can also have a 16 by 16 icon as well. This will be shown up here. But the only way you do that is by adding in a parameter like this. So it's icons, then you just have an object with each of the different sized icons and then where the image is located in your folder. So once you have that, all you need to do is go into your folder where you have your coupon function. So make sure you add your icon in here and update your manifest to link to this. And then you just compress or turn into a zip. And then you're ready to upload this. Now next, you need to go to the Chrome Web Store Developer Dashboard and create a new item. If you don't have an account for the developer dashboard yet, you need to create a developer account. And then all you need to do is click on New Item. So once you do that, you then browse and select the zip file you just made. So once you select that, it will start to process and upload your extension. And now you can fill in all the information that you want to add for your extension. So this all comes from the manifest file. Then you can add in a more detailed description, select a category, select a language, and then you can add more screenshots here, which is definitely recommended if you want people to be able to download your extension. This will make it stand out more in the extension store. And you can add a link to your website as well, and support links. You don't have to have these. And you can also have Google Analytics for tracking to see how many people are finding your extension listing and how many of them are clicking onto it. And then all you need to do after that is click Save Draft and then Submit for review. Now it should normally only take a couple of days, sometimes up to a week. And so long as you have your icon in there, if you don't have your icon, it won't pass this review. So it's important to make sure that you have that. Now there are different ways. If you want to charge for your extension, there's a few extra steps. So you have to make sure that you pick a payment system and a few different options there. But you need to make sure as well when you're signing up, you pay the developer fee, which at the time of recording is $5. If we just check down here, yeah, there's a $5 sign up fee. So if you have any questions as well on how to publish, just drop a message in the questions box and I'll try and help as best I can. But this should hopefully give you a quick guide on how you would go about creating an extension and actually setting this live onto the Chrome store so you can make your extension. And once you've uploaded your extension, if you make any changes, you can go into the package section just here and upload a new package. So an updated zip file if you've made any changes, and just try to make sure that in your manifest you change the version number so that everything keeps being updated. So as we mentioned in the last video, there's a number of different ways you can move this extension forward.
Thanks for watching the video. I hope you found it useful. And like I said, any questions, just drop a comment or send me a DM on Twitter and I'll be happy to take a look. And if you'd want to know how to migrate this to version 3, manifest version 3, just let me know. And we can get another video of this made, just showing how to migrate this across. It shouldn't be too difficult though once we've made the changes for manifest for Firebase version 9. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.